only did she start moving her fingers, but she started saying the prayers, which she wasn't talking before that. So it was like that kind of automatic piece in that muscle memory. So we try to get people engaged in the things that have saliency and relevance. We do that with other people with aphasia. So they get not just that, but they get connection with other people. And my very favorite time is when you first walk into a group and a new person has gone in and they sit down and they're with people that are just like them. It was like Lynn said, people like me. They get it. And the first time they say, oh, I know the word, I just can't say it. They're all like, yeah, I know. Like, it's that kind of, I found my tribe. I found the people that all understand. They help each other. They advocate. Before, if you had asked these people to go and tell somebody at the legislative building that they had aphasia, they're like, oh, I don't think so. With power and support, they're up talking to the governor this past June, right? Our garden group, which you would think, well, what does that have to do with speech? It has everything to do with communication, right? They put on plant sales. They had to decide when things were going to be grown and when, and they have a collaboration with the Holly Springs Food Cupboard and grew 1 ton of food for the homeless. What does that give somebody with aphasia? Gives them purpose. Right. So going back to our 4 kind of tenets, our 4 values is hope, purpose, determination, and engagement. So it is so essential for these things to be interlocked into the community efforts that the person does. We have 3 little blobs, I guess you'd say, for our logo, and it is to represent the person with aphasia, their families, and the community. Many aphasia programs that have been started in this country focus on a person with aphasia. But I can tell you as a daughter of somebody with aphasia, if you have aphasia, your whole family has aphasia, because it's like that foreign language example. Everybody needs to understand, from the youngest kid, who we have a princess kind of little fairy tale about aphasia to teach them how to communicate with mom or grandma or whatever. And I say that, but I will tell you our average age is 47, with our youngest client 18 and our oldest 90. So, but our average is 47. So teaching friends, I don't know how many times a person with aphasia in a group, and especially the folks that have been around for a while, because they were the ones who were referred after they got discharged from all their other therapies, guess where all their friends have gone? So yeah, they went back with their life, right? And it's not that they don't care. You might have had somebody who, had something happen to them. It's not that you don't care about them. It's that you don't know how to help. You don't know how to interact. So now we do this training, and we have a training coming up actually this Sunday at the TAP office that we do every other month, 2-hour training on how to communicate with people with aphasia. We do that kind of training and this kind of training to bridge the gap, to level out the playing field, for people to understand you're going to take the time and you're going to figure out. And it's not only about what I'm trying to say as a person with aphasia, but having a conversation back and forth. And then the community, this is a really good example what we're doing today with community. When we started, we had 2 groups, one in Durham and one in Cary. And we now have 19 groups, including Siler City, Winston-Salem, and Pinehurst, which is, I guess, not Triangle anymore, but that's where we are. Our program is a hub and spoke model, where we have our hub in Cary, right next to Dorcas and Read and Feed, here in Cary. But then our programs are held where people are. So people don't have to come to, an organization that's not even close to their home. We see that as a benefit in so many ways. I think you can probably already assume that if people in their own community know what aphasia is, in a community center or in a rehab outpatient or wherever we're given free space, which is what we look for, it's free space, is then that person is going to understand what aphasia is, and it's going to be more accessible to our clients. So if we brought everybody in here, it's really safe and it's really protective, but it's not real world. And there are a lot of aphasia programs that are very good in this country. There's about 5 that have full day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 kind of programming for people with aphasia. I have very mixed feelings about that. I think from a neuroplastic principle, it's awesome because they're getting tons of repetition and tons of practice. From a real life engagement, community re-engagement, it's completely opposite to what we believe, which is that if you're protected in this safe environment where everyone speaks aphasia, you're never going to have that challenge of somebody not speaking aphasia. This is what and this is on our website, but this is our current schedule. Another idea that we've just started with that kind of crosses all three of those blobs, reading or the individual with aphasia, the family, and the community, is something called a communication support team. And funny, it's kind of like a hub and spoke in and of itself. We based this on faith-based care teams, like at churches or any synagogues and stuff like that. When somebody's sick, they form like a little team, and that I'll take dinner this night, or I'll do this, I'm going to take her to appointments, but kind of filling in some of the gaps. This communication support team is a way of establishing more communicative partners, because when you think about it, if you want to walk better, what do you have to do? Walk. You have to walk a lot, right? If you want to move your arm better, what do you have to do? Move your arm, right? If you want to talk better, what do you have to do? Talk. Well, if you have 45 minutes twice a week with a speech therapist, and then the rest of the time your wife or husband or whatever have gone back to work, other than the dog, you're not communicating with anybody. And because communication is a challenge, that's really limiting that. So our communication support team says, let's get all those people that showed up at our door when I had the stroke and brought us meals and went to the hospital and stood there uncomfortably, not knowing what to say. Let's train them all on how to communicate with the person with aphasia. So when they're discharged from inpatient rehab, they already have a support network, and that support network knows how to communicate with the person. And we've seen already people become less socially isolated, more connected with their own community. And the friends and family say, thank God, we didn't know what to do, but now we have some idea. So this is the communication support team. And then why should you guys learn about aphasia? Why would anyone in the healthcare and the wellness field learn about aphasia? Not just because you're going to be communicating with people who have aphasia, but because these techniques are good to use with everybody. And those are the ones that I wanted to go over. Within a rehab or wellness model, it helps establish rapport better. It's easier to communicate with someone and establish connection if you both know how to communicate with each other. And it helps you have an idea of pain tolerance, how they're doing, what new issues might be going on. We think about communication as pulling information, but it's really that two-way street. And I think the funniest thing when I do teach Learning to Speak Aphasia, which is the training I'm doing on Sunday, people are always like, I thought that it was going to be about how I could get the information, what I learned is that I could do some talking and sharing too. I met a guy the other day, he's 43, and his mother came in with him, and he has not had any therapy. He had 2 weeks of home health after a stroke in December of last year, and had not gotten any other therapy. They never called him for outpatient. The doctor, it's one of those gaps that he fell into. But she started to answer for him, and I said, I got it. Don't worry. And I said, and then when I started talking, I said, so I'm from New York, and I had a map there, and I started to draw a circle over New York, and I was like, yeah, I grew up there, and and he picked up a pen, and he said, me too, and he said New York, and then he put an arrow down to North Carolina, and I said, so you were in New York, and it looks like you drew an arrow, does that mean you moved to North Carolina? Yes, and then we had this exchange. So it wasn't about, where's the pain, what is it, tell me your name. It wasn't about me, the Inquisition, it was about sharing experiences and communicating. So I use the analogy a lot that you would never discharge somebody home from the hospital if they can't walk without a piece of adaptive equipment. You would never sit somebody in a room who needed a walker to get to the bathroom, but then hang the walker up on a hook, right? You can't make accessibility inaccessible, but with communication, we do that all the time. And so I like to make this analogy because people think, oh, I'm going to have to get some like fancy iPad, or they're going to have to do this or do that. You can get some communication supports. Sometimes all someone needs to see is a letter board, and they'll think of the letter that their word starts with. You can, like, I would never have to talk about the news without having a newspaper or pulling up CNN on the iPad, because we could have an exchange better if there was a support there. Okay. Same thing with a pain scale or body movements or exercises. People with aphasia, if not just from a comprehension standpoint, getting the information in, but so that they can ask questions or tell you about something that happened. So it's not rocket science. You don't need anything major, but you do need paper and a pen. That's it. You can use a dry erase board and a dry erase marker. You probably see some of our clients do that to communicate with you. I'm personally not a fan of using a dry erase marker. Oh, I took it out. Because then when you erase it, it's gone. Some of our clients have one of those boogie boards that you push the button and it clears everything. Great, but then your conversation stream is gone. So if I come in and I just have this, I can communicate with anybody. Because you can concurrently comment, draw, write keywords, and these are some of the things that I'm going to show you here. Basically, you're trying to unmask their potential, because a person with communication impairments have, you wonder about their competency cognitively, right? So they have that kind of mask. And so we're going to try to reveal with their cognitive competence by accessing language for them. And we do that by a lot of indirect means and then a lot of direct means. The indirect means, I don't feel like professionals like you need me to go over. It's your tone of voice. It's your, sitting with somebody, not over them. It's those like kind of common, not screaming at them because they're not deaf. But then also some direct means, and say, I know you know. It's the best thing you could say to someone with aphasia. I know you understand. This must be so frustrating. I can't imagine knowing everything I want to say but not being able to get it out. Just by saying that, you have just put out a red welcome mat and said thank you for accepting me for having, what's going on right now. And say, you know what, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. We can work on it together. This is a learning experience. Not everybody knows how to communicate with people with aphasia, but I'm willing to work on it. And then you try to help get the information in, and then help them get the information out. So getting the information in are, again, kind of common sense things. You're not going to have a conversation with somebody when their TV is blaring. You will do better with every single person if you go, it was Laura, right?
Yeah.
Laura.
Yes.
Just that one,
Gotcha.
It's 3 seconds, right? It's 3 seconds, it's physical touch, and it's visual connection. If you do that, you will be able to establish better comprehension because they're focusing on what you're saying. Most people with aphasia have a latency of about 3 to 5 seconds where they're not processing the information if you just start. So if they're in here and you go, turn over, or I need you to lift your arm, they're already gone. If you say, Tom, I need you to lift your arm, and you show them, you got the comprehension. So it's kind of just adding some of these little things to them. Using hand, I would say talk Italian, use your hands, use hand movements, refer to any props or diagrams that you have. A lot of times we'll say, look at your own environment and say, what things are you going back to over and over to demonstrate? And have those in each room. Have a little toolkit that has a pad of paper, this, a dry erase marker or a Sharpie, the picture of the body, maybe a yes, no, a pain scale. Have them in just a little binder that you can have in each room so that you have those tools available to you. Instead of these like horrible communication boards they give patients in the hospital. like that has the picture of the glasses and the urinal. My mom got one and said she wouldn't be using the urinal. So I think the one technique that you can learn better than anything is to use keywords. Just always write kind of what you're talking about. So it's really raining a lot today, isn't it? But I heard that it's the wind is what's really going to pick up, and just using that keyword from what you're saying along here, so that when people talk about it, they can go back and judge it. The thing is, people with aphasia will say words they don't mean to say. So if they're telling you a story about their wife and you go, okay, so let me understand you. This is what I understand so far. So your wife is sick. And then they look at that and they go, no. But they said wife. Well, too bad, that's just the word that came out. But a lot of people won't catch it unless you write it down. So kind of keeping track of that. Believe me, I had an interaction with a client once, and she told me that, I said, how many kids do you have? Do you have any children? She said, yes. How many? And she wrote down 15. And I said, wow. You have 15 children? She was like this big around. And I was like, okay. I said, so you have 15 kids? And she said, yes. And I go, okay. So I have 4 boys. And I wrote the little stick figures, 4 boys. And I go, but you have 1, 2, 3. I got to like 5, and she just about had a heart attack. Grabbed the pen out of my hand and crossed off all but 2. And I said, you said 15. And she said, 15. And she pointed to the second kid. Oh, he is 15. Oh. So what I wanted to say was, oh, he's 15. But that's what you don't do. Oh, why don't instead, because it's guessing. Because they could be 15 miles away, they could have 15 kids themselves. So what you say is, you pointed to 15. Is he 15 years old? So you're asking the person, yes, oh, okay, and then, so he's 15. You get what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you're basically just acting as narrator. You're just restating what they say. Then you can help them get the information out by having these same tools available to them. All these other things like allow time, let them know there's no rush, take your time, you'll get it out. This is what I heard so far. If they're really stuck, saying, can you show me? A lot of people take your hand and bring you right over to what they're talking about. But say, can you show me on your butt? Can you do a gesture? Like, can you draw it? Can you write it? A lot of times they'll write the word right down or a part of the word. So those are some of the things that you do when they're stuck, getting it out. And then all the time you're going back going, okay, let me tell you what I got so far. We were talking about this. You're just acting as that kind of echo machine, of like, this is the communication that we're doing so far. And the connection is that they know you're taking the time to understand what they're saying. If you're really confused, remember people with aphasia will say yes for no and no for yes. My poor mom, she was for probably 3 months, in an assisted living, the nurse aide would come in and say, Joan, would you like soup or salad? And, she'd go like this, Joan, do you want soup or salad? That's what she was doing, because she was walking to get things instead of, and my mom would go, salad. She clearly didn't want salad. Or the aide's impression was, she really wants salad. But it was because there's a perseveration, there's an echo that happens with people with aphasia. The problem was that when she was saying it was the last thing she heard, so she was just repeating it. But the person wasn't verifying. If she had just gone, do you want soup or salad? Then my mom could have said, she'd probably still say salad, but she'd grab the soup hand. Or if you write both of them down, then they can choose. A lot of people do really good with choosing. So obviously these are just a few of the keys of working with aphasia. It takes years to get really good at it. But again, there is like the more intensive 2-hour thing that we do on aphasia, or if you ever get to a point where you're really seeing a lot of people and you want me to come and show you with any individuals, I can do that as well to help support their communication.
Wow.
I know it was a lot.
No,
It was
That's
good.
just what we needed.
It was good.
Questions? Thoughts?
Amazing. I'm very pleased to see the community connection. That's what lit me up. I'm like, all right, we can talk.
Yeah.
I was just saying to my husband that I need something to do to be a part of the community, but I hadn't yet found it. I think I'd really enjoy coming on over and
You
taking
should.
the class. That
And just
community
watch it.
learner class, and then you can be a part of it.
Yep.
Part of helping out.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not the friend who brought in somebody or something, but
That's fine. That's fine.
just
Yeah.
an outside support that gets
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the communication support teams, a lot of families move, like my mom, she was living in Pennsylvania. Many people move here because they had the stroke, so they don't have a community. You know, you think about it, a lot of people relocated here, their parents are still elsewhere, or, you know, something happens to somebody and their community is kind of displaced. Or their community moves on and goes, you know, back to life themselves, so they could always use support in those ways. Even in some of the groups, just, you know, coming to some of the groups and getting a handle on, you know, really how they use those techniques in a real communicative basis. But, you know, otherwise, who else would they have to talk to about news and about things that are going on? So,
Excellent.
any other questions?
It just lets me, because of the 3 clients that I've worked with, I'm doing some of it quite well.
Yeah, good, good.
But
You
it
get to
gave
do
me a
this.
little bit of insight on how to communicate with my most severe one.
He's tough.
We're talking about
He
Kurt.
is, yeah, Kurt.
So here's the
Wait,
question.
we all know
I had.
Kurt.
We
So
all
Kurt,
love
though, Kurt is the best. So he was an architect, which is really ties into his massive ability to draw, and he can draw with his left hand amazingly. And so I actually, in terms of communication exchanges, you can get much deeper than you thought you could get if you do drawing at the same time. And ask questions and come. And I know you're busy, you're doing stuff, but you know, when you're socializing in the beginning, or you have questions, or he can write any number, any of those things down. His comprehension is excellent. He is someone though that needs that 3 second, and I even see people who love him very much not use that, and I'll have to go, you know, you gotta make sure you get his attention, because once he's out to try to tell something, he's only thinking about that, and you can't switch him to another. So yeah, he's
So my
tough, but he's
direction-
just he's so intelligent, and he has so much good receptive language. You just have to add more visual cues and visual, and he reads nonstop, reads full novels without a problem.
My
Understands
question for
everything.
you is, I was
Great.
outside
Yeah.
working on some mechanical
Mhm.
something, cleaning a vent or something.
Yeah.
And he came out and he was walking around the building,
Mhm.
and we had a conversation about probably the day,
Mhm.
how beautiful it was. You know, I'd love to have more of one.
Yeah.
But he was trying to tell me how many times he was going to walk around the building, and he did. I eventually default to,
And gestures
and
are
then
fine.
that's so when you're trying to get somebody to say the words, but he's tried those words. He did. He looked for
Yeah.
them.
So, and
But then there's,
after
like,
though, he can imitate you.
Two or something like that.
He
Oh,
could
so I
probably
could
imitate,
say,
right. So his problem is apraxia of speech. So he's got the aphasia, but his bigger issue is he's got severe apraxia of speech. So the connection, or the muscle definition that leaves here shows up totally different out of his mouth. So it comes
Right.
out totally different. So.
All right. So where you're saying that 3 second delay would come in, if he started say something two, if I said two and I waited.
So
And
he'd
I-
say two, he might think you said three. Even though his comprehension's really good, I would probably, you know, either air spell it if you don't have anything that, you know, to write with. Now he's supposed to carry a plain notebook, because talk about not having, he's supposed to have a little.
He
I've
does
seen
have
that
his
one.
pencil and pen.
Yes.
He
Yep.
does it.
Oh, well,
Then you can say,
That's
show me. I'd say, show me. You're saying two.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. So you're basically telling him what he is doing and then how he can help it.
Yeah, Bob
So,
is spoiled with Bob.
I wouldn't probably have him say, I walked around the building 2 times. He's not gonna be able to say
No,
that, you know,
no.
but.
And I just
he can
could
do
tell
those
he didn't
simple.
want me. I didn't know what to do because I didn't know if I should fill in the blank.
Mhm.
But he was really working hard on telling me what he was doing.
Right.
So I left him alone. Is that kind of that uncomfortable pause of
Mhm.
waiting and not knowing what to do?
And the best thing you can say is, I know you have aphasia. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. I'm listening.
Yeah.
Just
That's what we do.
because it really does kind of stop that panic of them trying to get something out. That's where most of the breakdowns happen, is they're worried about you.
Ah,
They're
okay,
worried
gotcha.
about the interacting, not about themselves. They've got all day. They're worried about you taking up your time.
Yeah.
So, well, you guys are welcome to, shoot me an email and come over anytime. You're certainly welcome to the training as well. But I would love to do a little bit more things, together, so. Thank you guys for the
Thank you for being
opportunity.
here. Thanks for having your hub so
Very
close.
appreciate it. Yeah, we're very close. We're
So
very
you're on
close.
High House Road.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Not right now.
Well, thank you so much.
She even said the other day, you're surprised that
We'll
he
be
didn't
in
use
touch.
his
That was
writing
very
board.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.